Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. I hope you're all doing wonderfully well. It's Thursday night, one more day of work. Then we got the weekend, big game Monday night, and I couldn't be more excited. I hope you feel the same. Guys, got a little bit of a transfer news, views, and clues story to get through tonight. It's quite an interesting one with I don't know if you want to call him world class yet, but I think he's on that list of players that will become one. Personally, I'll say from the get-go, I'm not entirely sure that the links for the first player that I'm going to mention are legitimate, as much as I'd love them to be. I think that it's a bit of a difficult one to do, and I think there'll be bigger names in there, but we're going to go through it anyway. It's in the news, and you might find it interesting. Hang around, though, because at the end of, or the second part of the video, is another story or a link to a story to a player that was came out in September after the window closed. And I feel like with what's happened with Aston Villa over the last kind of week or two, with some of their scouts and kind of player ID, talent ID level operatives coming to Tottenham, and you might see a re-emergence of a story, like I say, that came out after the window closed in September. And to me, it's a very, very exciting prospect if it's true. I might be putting two and two together here and getting 5,005, but a boy can dream. Let's get into it. Before we do, please smash the like button for me, guys, like you always do. Really helps the channel, but also only if you enjoy the content. Hit the subscribe button as well whilst you're at it. Hit the notification bell and also drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And right, guys, the story that I wanted to bring to you first and foremost was about this player, Florian WIRTZ. Bayer Leverkusen, absolute superstar, Florian WIRTZ. Look, before we get to that, the story starts. Team Talk brought out the story a couple of days ago, and it's an exclusive from them saying that Chelsea and Manchester City are leading the race to sign Florian WIRTZ in the January window or potentially the summer, but that there's 4 or 5 other clubs that are monitoring the situation, that are progressing as well, that are trying to fight it out for this guy. And Tottenham are one of them. But the story, that particular story, spent most of the time talking about Manchester City and Chelsea. This story from Football 365 has used, I think, part of that story and part of a story that's coming out of Germany, I think it is. We'll come through it now to say that Tottenham and Arsenal are actually not losing track of the Bundesliga sensation, and that the £74 million valuation that he is worth is only really going to be affordable to a couple of clubs, and maybe Tottenham are one of them. I'm not sure if Tottenham are going to pay £74 million for Florian WIRTZ, but we will see. Let's read the story. Arsenal have joined Tottenham in the race to sign Germany and Bayer Leverkusen sensation Florian WIRTZ. According to reports, the 20-year-old has been enjoying a great start to the season, scoring 5 goals and providing 9 assists in 14 appearances for Xabi Alonso's side. He did miss 43 games last year after tearing his cruciate ligament, but he's managed to impressively overcome such a serious injury to help Leverkusen compete for the Bundesliga title. The German side have started the campaign very well. They're currently first in the Bundesliga with 8 wins and 1 draw from their opening 9 encounters. I think they're only one of 2 teams across all of Europe that have no blemishes on their record, apart from that 1 draw, no losses at all. Although some people are saying that you could include Tottenham in that stat because technically our only 1 loss came via penalties. So technically it's not a loss, at least on the stats. But anyway, we move on. Alonso's work is not going unnoticed, blah, 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 blah. He might be managers of Liverpool and Madrid in 2 years. WIRTZ's influence in the 10 role has been a huge factor for Leverkusen, who have scored an outstanding 51 goals in 14 games in the 23-24 season. Unbelievable stuff. The report says that Manchester City are key admirers, Newcastle United are tracking the player, and Arsenal and Tottenham have made checks. A January move feels unlikely given Leverkusen's ambitions domestically and in the Europa League, on top of the fee the German club will likely demand. However, a summer move should not be ruled out. And Mundo Deportivo, via Sports Witness, have said that North London rivals Arsenal and Spurs are in the picture to Lambert. Both clubs do not lose track of the player who has been one of the great sensations of the Bundesliga this term. He carries on to talk about other clubs like City, Madrid, Munich, Barcelona, but not many of those teams apparently can afford the fee that will be 80 to 100 million euros. And it's claimed that his asking price is a problem for most clubs. It's not clear whether or not Arsenal or Spurs can afford to meet the Bundesliga club valuation of WIRTZ. I think Tottenham can afford to meet it if they wanted to, but whether or not they do remains to be seen. Look, for me, guys, I'm just going to spend a couple of seconds running through, just so I'm sure you're familiar with this guy, but I don't personally believe the story is right for Florian WIRTZ. As you can see, he is a attacking midfielder primarily, can play in the second striker role, or he can play off the right. And so he certainly has some utility, some versatility, the phrases I like to use. And I think that Ange Postecoglou has mentioned many, many times that he's looking for players that can provide, significant options in different ways. I think going way back to Brisbane Raw days, he said, I like to play the same formation on paper, but depending on the personnel I pick, can make one team look incredibly different to another. I think even, the other day, I think it was yesterday or maybe today in the press conference, he was asked about Pape Sarr. What position is his best? Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Or is he a 10? And Ange's response was, the beautiful thing about him is that he can play anywhere in the midfield. And he's so young and adaptable. Whatever you ask of him, he can do. Ange loves adaptability. I think he likes unpredictability, and I think he likes versatility. And so I think Tottenham at the moment, especially given Charlie Eccleshare's report today, always listen to Charlie when he's putting out a piece. He's very respected. He says that Tottenham are looking for in the January window either a defender or a defender and either a striker or a forward, possibly both. I'd be very surprised if Tottenham will find 3 bits of business in the window. Maybe we'll get a midfielder or something if Højbjerg or Lo Celso was to leave, but I think it will be kind of 1 centre-back and maybe 1 forward. Now, whether that's a number 9 or whether that's a winger or whether that's a hybrid remains to be seen. But I think that Tottenham do need to obviously be looking at the future. This season, we're playing 1 game a week primarily. And so if Tottenham were to go out and get out number 9, I'll ask the question to you guys that I've been asking for a while now is, what does that mean for Sonny? Do you shoehorn him back out on the left-hand side where he's not, at his best? He's the second highest Premier League goal scorer. What do you do? It's a bit of a conundrum. But Tottenham clearly do need someone who is going to be able to, create chances for himself and for the team. And if you look at Florian WIRTZ's stats, which I'm going to bring up for you right now, then you can see the sort of reason why he's so highly touted. So as we look at his stats just very briefly, as I say, I don't particularly give this one too much credibility. However, we can just have a quick look at him versus attacking midfielders and wingers, and I think you'll see why he's so highly rated at 20 years old. In terms of assists, he's in the top percentile across Europe. He's going to get an assist more than once every 2 games. His pass attempted is up there at the very best in Europe. Progressive passes, 97th percentile, 7 times a game he's making progressive passes. Successful take-ons, something that Tottenham need more of out of our forward line. People that are willing to take on defenders in the top 3 percentile. This is the big one that I want you to keep an eye on. Shot creating actions. It's something that Tottenham need more from in their forward line. Doing things, whatever it is, that ultimately lead to a shot from one of the team members that are on the pitch. And he does that more than 6 times every single game. That sort of behavior is in no small part why, when you remember from the article, Xabi Alonso's side have scored 51 goals in 14 games, I think it was. Absolutely insane amounts of returns in the top end of the pitch. And it's because they've got players who are able to selflessly create opportunities for everybody else. And he does that more than anybody else. Just really quickly, as we go through this, look at the other things that stand out about him. His passing is absolutely sensational. He can hit it long, medium, or short with absolute accuracy. He does it more often, more frequently than anybody else. He's also up there with the amount of distance that he's passing the ball. So he's not just hitting it sideways and kind of getting out of the way. He's controlling the passing narrative throughout that team in a sensational way. 3.41 key passes per game. Key passes are a pass that leads to a shot. And he's just absolutely at the very top end of the spectrum as well. Passes into the final third. Only 5-6% of people are doing that more. Passes into the penalty area nearly 3 times per game. This guy is a creativity machine. And look, he'd be absolutely welcome at Tottenham Hotspur. He'd be welcome, I'm sure, at any of the big clubs. And whether he leaves Bayer Leverkusen, I don't know why he would necessarily want to leave Bayer Leverkusen. They're top of the pyramid in the Bundesliga right now, and possibly going to go on and really, push Bayern Munich for a title. I'm not sure he's any hurry to go anywhere. He's only 20 years old and he's got his entire future ahead of him. But playing for Xabi Alonso right now, it must be a wonderful experience. And by the way, Leverkusen have got superstars dotted throughout their squad and their team. So, I don't necessarily think he needs to leave. The one thing I would say, he's not defensive. He doesn't get involved defensively as much as some attacking midfielders, but that's not necessarily going to be held against him. As I say, I think this guy is a superstar. Do I think he's going to come to Tottenham? No, I really don't. I think that there'll be other suitors out there that will want a slice of him. And as I say, predominantly plays either in the James Maddison role or he plays on the right-hand side. Maybe he could come in and be converted, but I think Tottenham are looking for someone who can play in the kind of versatility, utility play, but primarily come off the left-hand side and offer some better competition for the likes of Richarlison, who I think or at least on my channel here, I say I don't think he's good enough whatsoever. But you know what, guys? There is a player out there who I think is. And I think he's not going to cost that much less than Florian WIRTZ. But funnily enough, I don't think that his contract, I don't think his the competition for his signature will be quite as stiff. And that is none other than Pedro GONCALVES. Now, Sporting Lisbon's Pedro GONCALVES is one of my favorite players. And I wanted to kind of remind you of this story that came out September the 13th. There you go, 2023. Spurs Web came out and said, Ojogo, which is I believe a Portuguese outlet, have claimed that Tottenham Hotspur are continuing to keep an eye on Sporting Lisbon attacker Pedro GONCALVES. GONCALVES has arguably emerged as one of the best attacking talents in the Portuguese top flight, with the versatile wide forward who can also play as a number 8 or a 10, finishing the 2022-23 season with 20 goals and 15 assists to his name. Many will be scratching their heads as to why one of Europe's biggest hitters did not sign the 25-year-old during the summer transfer window. Tottenham are keeping an eye on Pedro GONCALVES. That might have to do with the player's substantial release clause, with Ojogo now reporting that it stands at 80 million euros, 68.8 million pound. The report reveals that despite the closure of the transfer window, several Premier League clubs, including Spurs, Liverpool, and Newcastle, are continuing to observe GONCALVES closely. However, the publication adds, and this is the key bit here, guys, that it's Aston Villa who are the most persistent with their interest in the sporting star, having had a proposal for the player knocked back recently. Spurs Web Opinion says Spurs will know that from the Pedro Porro deal that Sporting are notoriously difficult to negotiate with. The Portuguese club would likely demand close to GONCALVES' release clause, which is why I do not expect Tottenham to get involved in the bidding war, particularly after Brennan Johnson's arrival. Right. So I completely agree. Pedro Porro deal was frustrating, and if you are going to go back and deal with Sporting, then it might be one of those protracted affairs that go on until the deadline day. It could look entirely similar to the Pedro Porro deal. I don't know whether Daniel Levy, after all of that last January, is going to want to get into bed again. But for what it's worth, the reason why I thought I'd bring it up is obviously we're looking for a player. I'm going to show you the player in a second. But I thought I'd mention it because this was only a month or two ago, 6 weeks ago, that story came out. But it says that the Aston Villa, who are the most persistent, and had a proposal for the player knocked back recently. Now, obviously, Aston Villa's talent ID squad, excuse me, I've got a very itchy nose again. Their talent ID squad, Rob McKenzie and Johan Langer, and I think there's another name who might be joining as well very shortly, whose name escapes me right now. They've all come from Aston Villa to Tottenham. And so it makes you wonder whether or not that the name Pedro GONCALVES was so high on the list for them because of the work and the shortlisting that the two or three members of that backroom team did at Aston Villa are now at Tottenham. So are they going to come to Tottenham with the name Pedro GONCALVES high on their list still, especially when you consider that he does solve a very clear solution for Tottenham? And that to me is, I think, interesting and I think exciting. I'm going to show you the player and how wonderful he is. He's 25 years old. Let's start with, before we get to his stats, I just want to show you, this is him over his entire career, right? So he's played, obviously, for Wolves, for FC, for Millicao, and for Sporting Lisbon. He's played as a DM 1 time, central midfielder 39 times, an attacking midfielder 7 times, a support striker 3 times, but primarily he plays off the wing. 39 times on the left, 42 times off. 42 times on the left, 39 times off the right. Look at these goal contributions. As a left winger, 42 games played, 15 goals and 15 assists. That's 30 GA in 42 games. That's a little over 0.75 goal or assist ratio per 90 minutes. In central midfield, he's done 21 goals in 39 games, which is more than a goal or an assist every 2 games. On the right side, 39 games to get 33 goal or assist contributions. Simply stunning. I think that's a 0.82, something like that, goals or assists per 90 minutes. As an attacking midfielder, only 7 times played, 2 assists, and obviously the rest is kind of a little bit insignificant. This guy, doesn't matter where you play him, will create things for you in the Portuguese league. And I understand that you might be saying, the Portuguese league, is it the Premier League? Look, most of the time, people that come for big money from Portugal into the Premier League, they do very well. And this guy, for me, is an absolute monster of a player. I can say, you can see it here. He's done it for in the last 4 years, 134 games, 54 goals and 33. That's 87 goals in 87 goal or assists in 134 appearances in Portugal in the last 4 years. Absolute monster when it comes to his output. But more than that, guys, he's not just doing it for himself. Let's move to the stats. And once again, you can see non-penalty goals, 0.38, up there in the very best versus midfielders, at least, in the top leagues. Shots total, 99th percentile. Assists, 94th percentile. Shot creating actions, 97th percentile. That's not for him. So he's doing all the things for himself, but he's also doing things for other people. 4.5 times, 4.75 times. Not quite as much as Florian WIRTZ, who was doing it, I think it was 6 times per game, but 4.76 times a game, not to be sniffed at. And if we scroll down, again, all you're seeing is 90th, 99th percentiles. Look at his shooting stats. Absolutely phenomenal. Better than Florian WIRTZ by a long way. His passing, not quite as good, but that's because he's obviously he's coming out as a winger. He's not necessarily sort of built to do that. But his pass types, he's crossing the ball, his switches, throw-ins, set pieces, corner kicks, free kicks, he's right up there. And like I say, this is the stuff that you want. If Tottenham are looking for a way to get more juice from the squeeze, more goals from other people, more distribution of responsibility away from just Sonny, then this guy is the sort of guy that can absolutely come in and do that. And for what it's worth, he also is right up there with the amount of touches in the attacking third. So he's someone that's going to be, right at the top end of the pitch all the time. Progressive carries, 2.38 times per game in the 87th percentile. Carries into the penalty area, 0.63 times a game, 93rd percentile. He is, excuse me, can't stop coughing. He is, for me, an absolute world class. I'm not going to say he's world class, but you know what? If he was doing those stats in the UK in the Premier League, he'd be probably thought of as being one. I think he's absolutely smashing player. I would love to see Tottenham go in and do it. Do I think it's reasonable? Well, like I say, the reason why I'm bringing it up to you is because A, I absolutely adore him. B, I'd forgotten about that story that happened in September. C, that story was based on telling the story that Aston Villa were leading the march. And I just think that maybe now, if the people that were responsible at Aston Villa for identifying and pushing the GONCALVES story, if some of those are in no small part now moving to Tottenham, then are they going to present GONCALVES as a solution? And is Ange Postecoglou going to like GONCALVES? Well, what do we know about Ange Postecoglou? He's looking for someone who can create more. He's looking for people that can play in a variety of positions, who can play in the middle, who can play on the left, and who can play on the right. And he's looking for someone who is going to help the team be more effective and more efficient and offer variety. And Pedro GONCALVES, for me, offers all of that in spades. I don't know whether or not Daniel Levy wants to get into bed with the sporting guy all January again or next summer. But if it could happen, look, take your pick. Florian WIRTZ, Pedro GONCALVES. The likelihood of either coming is probably very small, but a boy can dream. You should too. And just giving us permission to. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Pedro GONCALVES or Florian WIRTZ, who is a better fit? Is it possible? Do you dare to think that there could be a situation where Tottenham were to go for it one more time? Or is there someone else? Let me know, guys. Apologies for the coughing. I'm going to get a glass of water. But like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.